Welcome to Louisiana Heart Beats. I'm Sudie, Landry, and again today we have another awesome guest. I met this young lady at a book signing in Thibodaux, Louisiana. Needless did I know that she had published so many books, but there's a whole lot more to her. She is from Monroe, Louisiana, and she has taken out of her busy schedule to come on this show and share with us the different things she does. She is not only an author, she's an orator, and she's an educator, but she's also, the most important thing, a lady of faith on a journey that God has ordained for her. Welcome to the show, Jamie Mays.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let me tell you what, this is going to be one humdinger of a show because I'm already got the Holy Ghost bumps from head to toe.
I believe so.
I was amazed once I checked out your Facebook and everything else of just how the Lord has brought you from an area and you've gotten stronger over the years. And you made a statement, and I want to read it to the audience out there. And it more or less, you say that since your teens that you had a passion for speaking, performing, and writing, three things that became a substantial part of your destiny with God. Okay, would you like to share with us a tiny bit of what it was like when you were growing up? I mean, were you born with a silver spoon? Were you just, given everything that you're now doing? What happened?
Actually, I tell people the story that by many definitions of today's society, I was born as a statistic, right? A teenage parent, single parent home, lived in the housing projects. We were on welfare, food stamps. And to top it off, by the time I was 12 years old, I was suffering tremendously from depression. Because the experience we were living through at that time was just a lot. My mother was facing her struggles as her firstborn child. I took on some of that energy. And so in my eyes, I wish that I could fix a lot of the problems and the experiences. So I wasn't born with that silver spoon, but my mother was a woman of faith. And so even though she had her struggles, I knew that there had to be something in the fact that she believed in continuing to pray, and she encouraged us despite her difficult moments. And so that was what helped me discover writing. I was begging for the chance to have something to make me feel relevant, to give me a sense of optimism, to give me hope that things will change. Where we're born is not where we have to stay.
Amen to that, sister.
And so by the time I was 12 years old, I started by writing poetry. And for me, initially, it was just an escape. It was that personal moment that helped me put those energies onto paper and cope with them, deal with them, and go from a lot of times that place of negativity to a more optimistic place. By the time I was in high school, I was encouraged by a teacher to enter a contest, and ironically, I was in the 4-H club. And this is an agriculture club, so as a girl living in the projects, of course, I couldn't enter the pig contest. I couldn't show horses and cows, but my 4-H agent believed that I still had something that I could bring to the table. She knew I loved to talk. She knew that I had been writing, and she encouraged me to enter my first speaking contest. And from there, I started to get more into writing and sharing words of encouragement. And I tell people all the time, a lot of folks on the cheerleading squad, some people play football. I became a competitive speaker.
Well, listen, I want to stop you at this point and let you know that you just pretty well sang my beginning, because that was similar, except I wasn't in 4-H. But I was always wanted to be a reporter, so I wanted to be a part of the school newspaper. Okay, and I come from a background where I wasn't allowed to really join any sports or anything, so anything I could be a part of had to be during the day at school. Well, as you mentioned, you wrote poetry. I would write what was going on in my life, but I had to, due to circumstances, I had to hide my book of poetry, because if it had been found by the wrong person in our household, I would have really suffered tremendously.
Yeah.
So that's where my writing started.
Yes.
I could tell that book everything that was really happening,
Yes.
and I could cry out to God, and I could,
Yes.
go back and thank God when He got me through different situations,
Yes.
and so from that point, one day, the newspaper people, team, or something had a problem. Everybody drew a blank. I never understood what that meant. And Jamie, all of a sudden they said, "Sudie, we heard you write. Would you like to write something for the newspaper?" I ended up writing every article in the newspaper. I loved it, and it was no
Yes.
struggle. Gift of gab. my grandmother always told me, you've been born with a gift to gab. Now, I said that to say, when I started this show, Lord, I just feel the anointing of what you're doing and what God's had you do and what he's planning on doing with you. But there's this quote that did not print out correctly. I would love for you to share. Those who are blessed to have what gifts they're obligated to serve others. Okay, that is what was formed within us way before we even knew God on a personal basis. And so when you just said what you said a while ago, I just wanted you to know it's amazing. See, God knows where we're at. He knows where we're wanting to go. He knows where he wants us to go. So with that said, Jamie, you also, and I'm sharing this with Katiana, I have authors come in all the time, but each author has a special gift. Not every author has the same reason for writing. Not every author has the same purpose or has the same mission. But so it's interesting. I love to get the story inside of the story, how it started. And with that said, you said, or in this Jamie's philosophy, you said that you are a firm believer that it truly takes a village to raise a child. And if we expect them to one day be leaders, we must first show them how to lead. I mean, that is great. And you believe the most important lesson people can learn is that life is not perfect, and neither are we. So we must keep faith and press forward while using our experiences to grow. That right there is to come through the storms and still help others going through their storms as a testimony. Would you say that pretty well lines up with why you are so successful in everything you do?
Definitely. For me, it's actually the motivation behind why I decided to become a classroom teacher.
There you go.
One of the biggest things I talk about is the fact that education plays such a vital role in my life. Coming from a community that had great people to lend support, to encourage, when I talk about the idea of having a village to help raise a child, anytime I needed something, there were multiple people who stepped up to say, we want to help this child achieve great things. My church supported. My teachers said, what can we do to help? How can we encourage you? Anytime they had the opportunity to let me be creative. I wrote and directed a high school play and had a teacher who stayed afterwards to help me. I went to a national competition as a child who was still living in the projects, and we didn't even have a car to drive, but we came up with $2,500 from my community to go to Cincinnati to compete. So when I talk about the fact that the community has such a big role to help, it's not always the idea that you're in the house, you know exactly what's going on, but when we see these kids who are motivated and driven and have ambitions, that we step up to the plate to see how we can help them achieve those great things. And I have no hesitation to tell people that where I am now is because I was fortunate enough not only to have a mother who prayed despite the situation we were in, but that her prayers brought in people who wanted to help me get where I am headed. And so that's the same thing that I tried to give back once I became a teacher. I appreciated so often the educators I had who went out of their way to let me babysit their children to earn extra money, who forced me to enter contests, who made me rewrite a paper that I thought was a masterpiece because she said I wasn't being true to myself. The teacher who said, sure, I'll stay after school for a month while you round up your classmates to direct a school play, even though you've never directed one before.
You see that?
And so I wanted to give back those same things to people, and that's what I've had the chance to do as an educator. I've had the opportunity to share with students those moments that have been life-changing, but also to grow from them, to watch them, to continue to evolve as a person, to become more free as a writer, and to try to share with them those same gifts I was fortunate to obtain when I was a person or a child growing up, trying to find out how I can become the best person, how I can obtain my goals, and how I can work towards achieving my dreams.
Well, you said a whole lot, but we're not finished because I still got other stuff I want you to share. Okay, because you are that teacher, and I believe that when teachers are there at the school and they have the passion, they make such a huge difference whether a child succeeds or falls through the cracks. I never understood, Jamie, what falling through the cracks meant until one of my children was diagnosed with ADHD. And so therefore I had to start researching to get him the help and the needs that he needed and not give up on him. And I could understand one teacher, just when I was about ready to think about giving up, one teacher stepped forward and said, the school is not equipped to help a child like yours. But let me tell you this, your child is like the children who are falling through the cracks. They are super intelligent. They just have to be taught a different way. And don't blame the school. Get into the education system and help us get the classes we need. Lo and behold, that son is 38 years old today. It was a struggle to get him educated and everything, and he chose some bad paths, but he's back on the right path. But I always wondered where that teacher was that made a difference. I went to a meeting I didn't want to go to, and lo and behold, I looked at this lady and I went, you look familiar. She said, I'm thinking the same thing about you. And Jamie, there was the teacher. First thing she did was inform me that she was thinking about Corey, and I said, I've been praying that I could find you. She'd retired. Nobody really knew where she was or wasn't giving out information. And to Miss Stoops, she actually saved his life. She really did. So, and she had kept a certain gift that was in her pocket that she brought back to me that he'd given her when he was in her class. So God has a purpose for everything, you know.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Teachers, I admire them, and they're not just babysitters. They really, you know, have a job, an important job. So with that said, okay, so now we know you're an educator, okay, and we also know, and we want people to know that you were also a speaker.
Yes.
So when you were invited out to different places, what do you like to talk about mainly?
To be honest with you, I love doing two things, writing workshops and literary discussions.
Okay, and that is needed.
I am a writer by nature.
Okay.
I write like I breathe. It is a necessity for me. I believe in the beauty of English. I believe in the beauty of reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much power comes from not only reading but discussing and engaging in conversations with others, so we learn more about ourselves, more about others. We have a wider view and perception of the world. It helps us learn more about being empathetic towards others, and so I love literature. I love everything from writing elements and styles to the general conversation aspects. And I also love the opportunity to help kids learn to write. And so that's been one of the greatest gifts, is to do a 1 or 2 hour workshop with students. I've done a couple of workshops with adults and teach them how to write a poem of their own and watch their voices come to life on a piece of paper.
You just said something that caught my ear. Workshop for students. I'm so used to hearing workshops for adults, workshops for everybody. But that's the first time I've heard workshop. Now, here at KDN Open Channel, we do have television workshops and things like that, but education-wise, you're the first time I've ever heard anybody mention that.
Well,
So, you're from the Monroe area.
yes.
Are you still teaching in that area? I know we want to talk about your new organization, FLAC, and what it stands for, okay, and share with KDN what that's about also. So, back to Monroe. Are you still teaching?
I am still teaching, and I actually am no longer in a physical classroom. I actually work for Louisiana Virtual Charter Academy. So I have the opportunity to help kids virtually. And so
That is amazing.
it's been a great experience to look at education in a different aspect after teaching in a brick and mortar classroom for a long time. For a minute, it was like coming back and feeling like it was my first year all over again because I'm learning technology. But the skill and knowledge that I had, I was able to just transpose that in a different way. So I'm really happy to still teach, but I just teach in a different setting now.
But that's amazing, because to me, that can reach more children that don't have to be subjected to peer pressure. That actually, you're talking about on a computer or a screen, and that is the way to go these days. So, do you have a certain qualifications in the program for a student to participate? Like, does it have to be a certain grade? Does it have to be a certain topic?
Well, the school is designed K through 12, so
Everything, okay, good.
exactly. They can actually find that information. It's a public
Is
school.
this something
through
new? I'm learning.
Louisiana.
I don't know this.
Yeah, it's a public school like any other school in the state of
Okay.
Louisiana. So I'm still a Louisiana teacher. teacher for the public school system. I just
Wow.
teach in a different setting.
That is awesome, and that's something that if Katiana, you're watching this program, you can shoot her an email and find out more about that. That would be interesting. Or share the information to someone else like me. I want to tell my granddaughter this information. Please share with us what this organization is about. The initials BLACK. It was amazing to read it.
For a few years, or actually for about a couple of months, actually, a few years ago, we did what was called the Black Girl Meetup. And the mission of the Black Girl Meetup was just to generate positive conversation between minority girls. In the community I lived in as a teacher, I had the chance to come in contact with so many. Two of my schools had definitely been schools that had a large minority population. As a matter of fact, all three of them. So my goal was to bring these girls in and talk to them one-on-one and to kind of get some mentorship going. And I wasn't, usually I was just the background person, and I would bring in other guests. As a person who talks all the time, this was my opportunity just to sit back and let these people have conversations with these young ladies about life-changing things. You know, so often we feel like our kids will come to us as parents. Our kids will let us know when things are wrong. But just like with the workshops, we don't get the same results in a workshop that we get in the classroom, and we didn't get the same results in the meetup that we did in the classroom. It was a chance for kids to feel like they were unrestricted, and honestly, that they were in contact with people who would not necessarily judge them or have standards. They could be a little bit more free.
I love that idea.
So that
I
was the
do.
goal of it. Eventually, we did go ahead and phase it out because my schedule got busier. I published another book, but the goal is that we will eventually bring this meetup back because it was such a great opportunity to meet up with the community and talk to these young ladies. At this point, a lot of my time is spent actually going to other sites and talking to other people and teaching workshops and speaking. But that was a great experience I had and really enjoyed because it was a chance to give back to the community and a chance to hear young ladies talk about things that affect them.
So if someone is interested in finding out the different workshops that you are a part of, all they have to do is send an email to you that's on the screen.
Definitely.
Okay,
They can
that's
send an
all we
email.
need to say there because it's on the screen and it's up there every time you're talking. Jamie, okay, we're moving on now because, I mean, this is like, I got 30 minutes to do this, and she's got so much stuff, but we're doing really good, and I'm pretty sure we've still got plenty of time. But let's move into you being an author. We already know you started off in poetry. We already know that you have the gift of writing. You were forced into it, but yet you willingly succeeded in everything you did. Your books, let's talk about being the author of not just one book, but 6 books. According to this, your first one was Tear-Stained Dresses and Dusty Shoes, and that was in 2011. Just briefly kind of tell us a tiny bit that's inside of that book.
There are actually 5 books.
Just
Hang on.
5. I don't know where I found this.
That's okay. That's okay.
There's
Some
going
of
to be
them
a
are
6th
in
one now.
ebooks, so I'm working on the
that's it.
6th one now. So
Okay.
actually, I have
I'm
a
like,
novel in
okay.
progress right now.
Good.
The first one was called Tear-Stained Dresses and Dusty Shoes, and I published that in 2011.
Okay.
I was encouraged by many years for one of my very dear childhood friends to turn my poetry into a book.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, honestly, I told her, who's going to want to read this? And she never gave up on the concept. By the time I moved to North Louisiana, I just finished grad school, and I said, well, I've written all this poetry. What should I do next? And she said, you should start that book. And it was really just an act of habit. I decided to pursue the book, and it opened the door. I wrote the first one, and it was like a little addiction. I was like, oh, my goodness, this is such a wonderful
That's
experience
amazing.
to share this work, to share these pieces. The feedback was tremendous. The encouragement was tremendous. And I felt that I had to do more, to share more, to give more. I felt that this was the thing that God had been waiting for me.
And then let's talk about your second book. According to this, it was in 2013, Pennies in My Pocket.
Yes, which to this day has
Now,
been
what genre is that? Is it still
this
poetry?
is also poetry.
Poetry?
And
Okay.
it has been the bestseller to date.
All right.
It's what I call my return to womanhood.
Okay.
And I tell people all the time I'm a real life writer, which means I don't always tell pretty stories because my life has not been a pretty experience.
Truth.
What I write
The
to you
truth,
about
yeah.
is the gritty truth about who we are, how life affects us, how we act emotionally, but how do we process those things. And in the end, when I publish this book and you look at me, I'm still standing. So Pennies in My Pocket was completely this evolution for me. I wrote 138 pieces in about a year and a half. And I anticipated
Hold on,
3 years.
138 pieces, are you saying sheets of paper?
poems,
And
different
poems.
poems.
Different poems, wow.
Different poems.
Wow.
And I anticipated 3 years until my next book, and it was about 18 months later. And one night I woke up and said, "This is it." The photography on that book was actually done by my mom. She photographed that cover and she
okay.
designed that cover for me. So
Alright.
that was a wonderful experience. And she went on to photograph 3 books for me. She's done 3 of the cover designs.
Wow. Well, let's kind of briefly talk about the other books since I already have put it out there. You are working on a 6th one. Okay, so, all right, on the screen. Let's go ahead and just talk about the one on the screen a little bit. Okay, what is that book kind of a little tiny bit about?
So Blood is Supposed to Be Thicker is my first novel. And I'm so excited because for years people have been asking, when are you going to bring us a novel? And I started it several years ago, and I actually lost 80 pages of this book. And I was so devastated that I could not pick it up for a while. And, every time I would go places, people would say, "Do you have a novel?" And my friends were being great supporters, kept saying, "When are you going to bring us the novel?" And finally, after I had my son, I really thought it would be a while. I'm like, my goodness, this is such a big change. But I picked up my typewriter on my computer one day, and I started typing. I don't know why I said typewriter.
Well, hello.
And I started typing, and I could not stop. And in about 2 weeks, I had finished this novel, and I got ready to take it to the presses. And one of my coworkers served as a test reader. And when she picked it up, she said, "You have to publish this. I'm ready."
Wow.
And so it has been a great experience ever since then. I'm very excited about this book. Once I finished it, I immediately started my next novel. So I'm very excited about Blood.
All right, so let's talk about the next one. And the email's up there. We'll tell you later that you can understand that you can find all these books at barnesandnoble.com.
Yes.
So we'll give you that email after a while. And the next book was?
The next novel has not even been titled yet. It's a work in progress right
Okay.
now. And it's going to be about a young woman's transition into womanhood.
Okay.
And how does the world, society affect how we view and perceive ourselves. But the way that I have the experience for her, it's what's going to be unique about it because we have a girl that's going to be running through a jungle.
Wow.
A little bit of a swamp. So
A little bit of a
I'm
swamp
so
girl in
excited
there.
about this story. I'm so ahead of myself. Like a lot of times my mind cannot even rest. But I try to spend as many late nights as possible working on this one. And my hope is that within the next 18 months, that novel will be finished.
Okay, Jamie, as we're kind of getting to close to the end of the show, we have about 2 minutes left. Real fast. Bitter Lemons and Sweet Lemonade. Is that still poetry?
That is a collection of short stories.
Short stories.
And every story is about women and how, as women, we learn how to manage, cope, survive. Now, how we manage may not always be conventional, may not always be a good idea, but we do. And so every story in there is about different women, different walks of life, different experiences, different nationalities, different cultures, different religious backgrounds, different practices. So you get 10 stories and a play in that book.
Wow.
And I wrote that book as a tribute to my aunts because it's a celebration of the idea that they are the women who have helped to shape me. In addition to what my mom has done, she also has 5 sisters. And they have been such an instrumental role in helping me to grow. And so when I wrote these short stories, I thought about all the things I've seen them do and the sacrifices they've made and how years later they're still the women that you can go to anytime you need something. And so that's one of those books that I find to be just a very treasured piece and collection.
Well, our fun time is almost over, but I want you to know this. My rolling credits are going to start up, but I want to go ahead and close out the show, but yet I want to let you share whatever's on your heart as we're going to begin. Okay? Thank you for watching Louisiana Heart Beats, and we air, of course, as you know, 9 o'clock every Monday night. Today was a guest, educator, author, orator. I mean, this lady has just got it all going on, and she's from Monroe, Louisiana, and I'm proud to say thank you so much, Jamie and Hayes, for coming on the show. And for those of you out there, I hope this show has interested in any of our books, check it out at barnesandnoble.com. Thank you for watching and have a blessed life, not just today.